Welcome, everybody. I'm Lisa Michaels, and I'm super happy to be here today with Melody Gladden. She has been working with the Inner Creation team for a long time now, and I can't wait for her to tell you her story. She's a soul guide. She is deeply steeped in helping people to understand how to really work with this energy. So, Melody, hi. So glad you're here joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I want to know first off, and I want to really share with everybody, like, what was your journey about learning your own creation team, and why do you think it's important?
So my journey began with my first session with you and did my chart, and I just was like, whoa, I didn't even know all of these archetypes were going on. All I knew is that I was an Aquarius, and that was pretty much it. But I knew for a long time that a lot of the are like descriptions of Aquarius, it just didn't align with me because I am emotional. And I was like, this is weird because Aquariuses are supposed to not be emotional and care what people think. And so I was like, this doesn't make sense. But once we looked at my chart, I was like, okay, this makes sense. But I was still confused about, well, what am I supposed to do with this information? And for me, it didn't come until later when I really started working with the archetypes with the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also working with the elements with the moon cycle. So, new moons and full moons. That's when I really started understanding the different energy of the archetypes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, just in case anybody's brand new, let's just break that down just a little bit for them. So, Earth, you have all four elements: earth, water, air, and fire. And Earth subdivides into three archetypes of Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, and they all express Earth a little bit differently. And then you have water of Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. You have air of Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And then you have fire of Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So they take the element and the core essence of how that element functions, and then each one of that elemental archetype expresses a little bit differently. So this is what Melody's talking about. She really got connected to those energies and understanding those energies. That was really what you're saying, Melody, is that was really part of your journey of understanding your own creation team.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, Going with the Earth's rhythms and cycles, and but then also the planets and stuff. When I really just started getting in that rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
you could feel the difference in the energy of each of the signs, not just with because the sun will be in a sign for a whole month, but the moon will only be there for a few days. And I also learned about myself because I have a Cancer rising, that's what I've come to learn this lifetime, learning the moon cycles. And I learned a lot about myself, about my emotions being all over the place for the longest time because the moon changes signs every few days. So my emotions could change along with it. Uh,
Right.
so that's what I started picking up and noticing the more that I worked with the moon's rhythms. Um, I just started picking up on those subtle energies and the differences between the different archetypes and the different feeling of the elements.
Yeah. And so, again, just in case anybody's kind of new to the community, I send out something about the new moons and the full moons, but we have a Facebook group called Nature Aligned Life, and I post whenever the moon changes. So if you want to start getting more deeply attuned, that's a great place to tune into. And I'll put a link in the Facebook description so you can, really tap into that and really have a connection to it. Okay, so one of the things I really want to understand, Melody, is what did you start to notice in your own life as you got to know your creation team, did you feel like you had power struggles internally before that? Like part of you wanted to go this way, part of you wanted to go that way. Like what kind of things were you dealing with that understanding your creation team helped you to resolve?
So different struggles within myself. There were tons of them. One of the main ones that I picked up on right away was my Venus and my Mars, because my Venus is in Pisces and Mars is in Virgo, and those are actually opposite signs of each other. So not only was there conflict there, but they just weren't getting along, I feel like, because I could tell the more I worked with Virgo, I understood that if my surroundings weren't clean and clear and set in a particular way, I couldn't get anything done. Right.
Mm-hmm,
And then
mm-hmm.
I would have this Pisces energy that would come in and be so dreamy, and I want all these big things and all the things. And then this voice but in the back would be like, yeah, but we don't have the money for that. How are we going to get the money for that? We need to structure this better. And there was always these like little internal conflicts that I didn't really pick up on. I knew that there was internal struggle because I had mental illness and was like, in my head a lot. But once I realized that it was the different archetypes that were pulling at me and talking to me, then I understood that my Scorpio moon was one of the reasons why I was doing the job that I was doing at the time and was going really, really deep with my emotions. But then it was that Pisces was the reason I could feel everybody else's emotions. So there was a lot of this chatter and this back and this forth and all of the things. And when I really started working with my creation team, I learned to listen to what they wanted to express at that time. And then I could decide, is that appropriate for me to express this now? And how can it work with the other archetypes in this moment?
Right, really important. And one of
Yeah.
the things I just want to clarify for anybody who may not know this is that Venus is actually the inner feminine. So your inner feminine is Pisces, and
Mhm.
your inner masculine, which is Mars, is your Virgo, right?
Yeah.
I had to think for a second. Yeah. So this is a water earth combination that at the core, like you're talking about, Virgo needs to be really grounded and have things around you be beautiful. And Pisces is all about feeling everybody else's feelings. And it's this connection, not just to everybody's feelings, but to deep compassion and to really connecting to the mystic quality in life. But they're both really spiritual signs. These archetypes, they very much tap into spirit, just in different ways.
Yeah.
So I could see for you that they could really, until you understood them. And then, Scorpio moon is also, that's your soul print. That's what you kind of came in with, that gift. But that's a lot of water too. So you had to really learn to navigate the element of water in your emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I started out learning the elements first
Mm,
because I really needed to work with water.
yeah.
For the simple fact that you said that my feminine energy is water, my moon energy is water, my ascendant is water, my Mercury, how I communicate is through water as well. So I have all this water, right? But I'm an Aquarius, so I'm the water bearer. So but I needed a better container.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was when I started working with the masculine energy that was being supportive of my
Mm,
watery Pisces, Venus, feminine energy. The more that I worked with the elements, I could understand that Virgo is what's holding the container for water. It's,
right.
it's there to support. The masculine is there to support
Mm,
the feminine energy within me.
mm, mm.
Um,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful. So I just want to say that this whole body of work really started out with the elemental teachings. And if you want to understand the elemental teachings, there's actually a lot of things you can do. One is go out in nature and really start connecting to the elements. Two, there's an elemental oracle that is on the site that is a incredibly useful tool because it's the core teachings of each element, and it'll really start to inform you. There is the new book, Your Soul Prosperity Code, and there's the book Nature's Creation Alchemy. Oh, lovely, lovely. And there's the book Nature's Creation Alchemy, which is all about the elements. So we've got plenty of good starting places for the elements. Plus, Melody teaches about it. So who do you most often and specifically help, Melody, and kind of in what way when you teach and you share and you work with people?
Typically, what I have found is that I have a lot of men that need a safe space to talk to someone and to be vulnerable with someone, but then also they need some tools.
Yeah.
And I try to explain to them that I'm not here to heal you. I'm not a healer per se. I'm just here to give you the tools for you to go on your own journey. And so what I am finding is that there's a lot of men who are wanting a connection, not just with other men, because a lot of times what I'm starting to see, I've been online for a really long time.
Yeah.
And what I'm really starting to see are men are following these, what I like to call podcast bros, that aren't really on a healing journey. They're just out there spewing like, masculine, and they're just like, it's a very patriarchal thing, right?
Yeah.
And I really want men to understand that the patriarchy hurts you too. It's not just women, right?
Yeah.
And so I find also that a lot of the people that I talk to, they know nothing about the archetypes. They know nothing about the elements. And so I like to start at ground level to get them to understand, like, you don't have to learn the elements right away, but just knowing who your creation team is, what's your inner makeup, what's your inner workings.
Who are you?
Yeah, because each of those archetypes have an element attached to it, right? And so just who are you inside, and what archetype are you blocking the energy from? And what I have found with a lot of the men that I work with is that they have shut off their divine feminine because they don't understand that they have both the divine masculine and feminine energies working within them.
Right.
And just like women, they don't realize that they have the masculine energy in them as well. Right. So that's typically the type of people that come to me, is that they're like at the base level of learning how to do stuff.
Okay. And what a powerful and beautiful thing to be able to offer. And to really, I mean, I think it's an underserved community, the men who are just waking up, who are just really starting to get in touch with their own healing journey and that deeper part of themselves. And I mean, I know you work with a lot of women too, but men really do find safe solace in terms of coming and working with you and finding that deep safe space. So, for anybody who's on this path, there is the start of the path, which is just beginning to learn how the elements work, how the archetypes work. But then there's also this call for some people that comes from deep within of like, I want to do this too. I want to be a soul guide. I want to learn how to share this with other people. What would you say to somebody who's like trying to decide if that's something that they want to do? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I am always for other people sharing information. Like if this stuff is touching you to where you're like, everybody needs to know this, then step into it. Because what I have realized about myself is that my life's purpose is to help like plant the seeds, to wake people up, to get them on their path of their own ascension, right? And so when somebody comes to me and says, I really think that I want to do more of this, then I definitely encourage them to do it, because we do have a pathway of doing that.
Right,
You know,
right.
we do have a program for facilitators, and
Yeah.
then there's even another level above that. So, I think that this work needs to be shared as much as possible. So I definitely encourage it for sure.
Yes, beautiful. So I just want to have just a tiny little bit more conversation about this piece that I think is super significant for relationships. And that is this piece about the inner masculine and the inner feminine, and what is actually called the inner sacred marriage. When these two come into alignment, they really help to form a core union that helps you to be well directed in anything that you bring in. Because if think about it, in a relationship, if the masculine and feminine, they don't get along, is not good. And that same thing happens inside of each one of us, whether no matter how we identify, self-identify, those two aspects work inside of us. So it is that sacred coming together of those two parts that are so meaningful. And you really spoke about that men struggle with knowing their inner feminine, and women sometimes they're in their inner masculine and they don't even know their inner feminine.
Right.
Or it can work either way. But if those two aspects of somebody are in a power struggle, it makes it really hard for the whole creation team, which are 8 core members of your creation team. It makes it really hard for that whole team to be in alignment. Just like if you have 2 leaders of any, and I'm not saying that they're leaders and they're over everybody else, but they are core to the whole creation team going forward. And if they're not getting along, it makes it really difficult for somebody to step into what they're here for, to align with their prosperity, to even manifest anything effectively.
Yeah. And also something that I've learned along the way, when those within the relationship of that, we tend to project those energies out. And so for the longest time, I struggled with like romantic relationships. And I could make a list and be like, okay, what's all the qualities that all these men have? And they were emotionally unavailable. Well, guess what? Virgo isn't an emotional sign. Virgos can be emotionally unavailable. And I was projecting that out. And I was in like, that's what projection is. I know, I don't know if you've noticed this, but online people are always like, oh, you're projecting, you're that. I don't think they really understand what they're projecting.
Right.
And so if you're projecting one of these, onto your partner, that's not for them, that's for you. That's your energy. That's not their energy. I don't know what, most of the time, I don't know what their, masculine, feminine energy is unless they let me look at their chart. But, me projecting that on to all the relationships I had, no wonder I was having a hard time. That wasn't for them. That was for me. That energy is for me to be able to create and do the things that I need to do.
Yeah. And I think it is so critically important that people take the time to know who they are fully.
Mm-hmm.
Because in any relationship externally, if you don't have it aligned internally, it makes it really difficult to get along and to move to a new level in a relationship, because the struggle, like you say, is it's inside and you got to work that out first.
Well, that, and then like, I know we're talking about the divine masculine, divine feminine energy, but Mercury is just as important
Yes,
because
yes.
that's the communication planet. So I communicate through Pisces. So Lord help if you get me on a topic, because I can be super long-winded and I can just go and go and go, and I can be super empathetic and I can cry, I can do all of the things. And people thought I was an emotional wreck for the longest time. Well, I probably was, because I wasn't working with my water and I wasn't understanding how that element was working through me. But everyone's communication style is different. They think, oh, I'm an Aquarius, so I'm this. No, no. But the more that I knew myself, the inner workings of myself, the better my relationships improved on the outside, because then I could give them grace
Yes.
also, because
Right.
they don't know themselves, you know,
Exactly.
like, well, they don't know themselves and they're doing this, but I can see this and I can give them grace. And
Yeah.
it totally has helped my relationships all across the board.
That's great. That's great. And I just want to say one last thing before we close here, Melody, and that is, water is a big deal, teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't fool around with water. It seems like it's a, fluid, beautiful element, and it is. But when you're learning emotional maturity and you're learning to develop yourself emotionally and to hold a safe container for yourself emotionally, it is a very big deal to learn how
Mhm.
to navigate in that realm. So I just commend you for the tremendous amount of work that I know that you have done on the inner and the outer in terms of really learning how to work with these. And you just hold a really safe space for people to come into understanding themselves better in. So thank you for taking the time today and to share with us. And is there any final thing you want to share with folks?
I just thank you, Lisa,
Mm-hmm.
because this is the person who helped me get to the place that I
Oh,
am right now.
that's
All the
beautiful.
teachings of the elements, of the archetypes, all of the things. So thank you. Sorry, I
Mm.
didn't mean to get emotional, but
Oh no, I think that emotion is beautiful. Truly, I do. So thank you for sharing from your heart, and just blessings to anybody who comes and works with you. Truly, Melody. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.